Penang, Malaysia. A bustling metropolis that's a manufacturing powerhouse. It's also an island city whose beauty attracts tourists all year round. But this expansion comes at great risk. With the population booming, waste management is proving ever more difficult. And pollution is compromising the landscape, both natural and man-made. Penang is on a mission to find sustainable ways of protecting its treasures. Otherwise, its days as a boomtown might be numbered. Asia is booming. Its population nearly quadrupled within a century. These boomtowns are fueled by more than human or natural resources. Radical innovations are making them livable and sustainable. But the challenge of achieving these innovations can be tough, and the answers are never straightforward. Asianopolis. This is what a 25th century city might look like. An urban utopia where sustainable developments play a vital role in millions of lives. Here, organic methods of green technology have evolved to such an extent that everything could be recycled, even excess food. This is the organic converter, a unit which uses microorganisms to recycle waste food, creating a biofertilizer for homegrown vegetables. This organic recycling would be practiced in every household in Asianopolis, a sustainable initiative that originated from developments in the 21st century. Since it was founded in the 1700s, Penang had grown in prominence as a port city. Those days, though, came to an end in the late 60s, when Penang's duty-free port status was revoked. The city had to reinvent itself.
We have got to change from agriculture-based trading to manufacturing sector.
This adaptation saw Penang's population and economy boom over the next few decades. Penang now boasts an estimated GDP of more than $15 billion and houses around 1.6 million residents. But this success comes at a cost. Its urban developments have created negative consequences. One of the side effects of this growth is inevitable waste.
All the dump sites which we have are all open dumping. The smell itself, the pests, the rats, is just very, very scary.
It's not just valuable space that's taken up. The site is also littered with organic waste. This attracts pests, creates harmful gases like methane, and encourages bacteria to thrive. It's a biohazard.
As far as this management is concerned, it is indeed very hurting to hear our minister saying that Penang is the rubbish dump of the Orient.
An SOS was sent out, and it was answered by someone who lived thousands of miles away. For the past 20 years, Australian Ken Bellamy has been working on a remarkable idea: to use nature against itself. His weapon of choice, microorganisms.
There are things that are small that are not good for us, but there are a whole range of organisms that are essential to our survival.
In the 80s, Japanese scientist Dr. Teru Higa had discovered that a microscopic army of bacteria could be created to digest organic matter and kill bad germs.
The understanding that it was possible to grow sets of microorganisms and use them, train them up, just like we would train other animals, so that what they do actually provides an outcome that we want.
There are key strands of bacteria that enable this. The photosynthetic bacteria are the commandos which break down or digest organic waste. The lactic acid bacteria are the soldiers that hold down the fort and prevent bad germs from growing. While the yeast are the artillery unit, which provide enzymes and other substances to help digestion. Ken's plan was to use these organisms to convert organic waste into a nutrient-rich biofertilizer. Over the years, he experimented with many different microorganic solutions that were in the market. But he kept facing a stumbling block. Each organism only eats certain types of food before releasing a byproduct. And when this food is used up, the organisms die. What Ken needed was to get certain organisms together so they could live off their regular food as well as each other's byproduct.
I actually went around the world looking for formulations that hung together, where people had put together a mini ecosystem and they could put it in a bottle, basically.
In 2010, Ken finally found his winning formula, and he called it the Regen Bokashi. He presented his plan to Penang's leaders. But having a good idea wasn't enough. Implementation was the key. Using it in the landfill was not an option, as that would mean valuable land would still be needed. The solution was to make a machine that would recycle the organic material as soon as it was considered waste. This is the Bayou Regen unit. The Heng High School is one of the first venues to have the unit installed. The first step in using the machine is to add the bokashi, as well as a microorganic cleaning solution to prevent the machine from collecting germs. Then all the waste food is added to the chute. A pedal at the base turns on the faucet and the grinder. The water and waste mix with the bokashi and the cleaning solution in a central chamber, where they go through a dual grinding process, producing a fine organic slush. The solution is then transferred to a large retention tank to ferment for 28 days. The end product is a nutrient-rich biofertilizer. By the end of 2012, 11 units were fitted around Penang. And the public are now becoming more aware of this green initiative and doing their part in proper organic disposal.
I found out yesterday there's a unit that's been purchased that's running around Penang in a mobile circumstance. I didn't know that was happening, but that's fantastic, you know.
In 2012, over 70 tons of organic waste was recycled. But years of neglect have already taken a toll on Penang. Its rivers bear the signs of pollution running rampant. In 25th century Asianopolis, war would be waged against pollution at a microscopic level, where microorganisms would be used to recycle organic waste. But these microbes would also play a role in maintaining the health of nature. And water management robots would be their vehicle. Armed with an arsenal of microorganisms, these robots would patrol the waters of Asianopolis. When pollution is found, these machines would dive in and release their cargo periodically, allowing the organisms to naturally nullify the negative bacteria and return the water to a healthy state. This method of using nature against itself would be one of the hallmarks of the success of Asianopolis. And it was in the 21st century that this idea was born. A time when the effects of decades of pollution had caught up with Penang, Malaysia. Penang's fortitude in manufacturing has seen it become one of Malaysia's biggest economies. Industries are thriving on the island and grander developments are being built. But the trade-off to this growth is inevitable pollution. Of the 36 rivers in Penang, only 7 can still be classified as clean. 11 rivers have been identified as needing extensive treatment, while the remaining 18 are so badly polluted that marine life is at great risk.
Since I'm a kid until now, I've seen a lot of changes in Penang River. It has been deteriorating to a condition that almost all the rivers, the pollution level is so high that you are not even allowed to touch the river water.
For the past 3 years, John Su and his partners from Team 3 Envirotechs have been working on solving this problem. But cleaning the river and keeping it clean wasn't a straightforward task. The conventional method of cleaning was through desludging, pumping up the polluted water and dumping it somewhere else.
To me, this is not solving the problem there and then. You are actually transferring the problem to other place and not also solving it, just dump it somewhere else.
And then, in 2007, John came across a revelation. The effective microorganism technology that Japanese scientist Dr. Teru Higa had created in the 80s. The same principle that has proved successful in Penang's recycling of organic waste. These effective microorganisms, or EM for short, center around three key strands of microbes: photosynthetic bacteria, lactic acid bacteria, and yeast. When they work together, they're capable of digesting organic matter and killing harmful germs.
When I first found out about this technology, I got very, very excited because I think that this would be the solution to help Penang. It is an organic way of healing the environment.
But before the good news could be shared, John had to find a way to implement this in the river. And it was easier said than done. Rivers are constantly moving.
When we use EM to pour into a stagnant water, it works well. But when you use EM to pour in a moving or flowing water, it will be washed away.
In order to keep the solution anchored to one area, tests were conducted with microorganism-infused mud balls. There was, however, a major drawback. The bacteria hold the mud ball together, but they don't have a constant food source. This means they begin to expire, and the mud ball starts dissolving. The remaining bacteria then get washed away. So John had to go back to the drawing board, but this time he added two key ingredients.
What we do is actually we add in the rice bran and molasses into the EM solution and mix it together with the mud so that the bacteria has a food supply and they will maintain in the mud ball for a longer period. For example, if you throw it into the river, it could last more than 3 months.
The way to make these special mud balls is to first mix the earth with rice bran. A mixture of microorganisms and molasses is then added in. The glucose from the molasses and the protein from the rice bran immediately start providing a rich energy source for the bacteria. Then it's just a matter of mixing it all up and making fist-sized balls. Once done, the mud balls are left to ferment and harden. Armed with an armada of mud balls, John Su worked with the state government in 2009 in a pilot project to clean up Penang's rivers. The results were amazing.
Our first largest environmental project was the 1 million apologies to Mother Earth, where we make 1 million mud balls to throw to the rivers in Penang State.
Within 6 weeks, the sludge was gone. So too were the foul odors, but more importantly, the marine life had returned. With the project a unanimous success, other areas were targeted for treatment. Many local organizations teamed up with John to play their part. And as the public gained further awareness, Penang's rivers started getting cleaner by the day.
We have been throwing this mud ball here for a couple of months already. It seems to be very effective, and we can see some good results also.
By early 2013, over 1.7 million mud balls have been used in Penang's rivers. And the results are there for all to see.
I believe EM technologies has already bring a lot of good things to Penang. The awareness itself, the change of attitude in people, in throwing rubbish, in spitting on the street, this has changed the mentality of the people.
With the state of the rivers improving, Penang turned its focus to other areas in the city that needed urgent attention. Places that were being compromised at a daily rate. In Asianopolis, the city of the future, sustainability would be the prevalent mantra. And each resident would practice this ideology on a daily basis at home. Thanks to this biofuel conversion unit, a device that would collect all used oil and convert them into fuel for the city's monorail system. This reuse of waste to create energy is common practice all over Asianopolis. And it was due to events that unfolded in 21st century Penang. The diversity of food in this island city has always been abundant. And the common denominator to it all is the use of cooking oil.
All Asian food have got deep frying, or even all the other preparations still involve the usage of oil. The national statistics at the moment is about 200 milliliters of oil per individual per day.
Every month, Penang's population of over 1.6 million people consume around 2,000 tons of cooking oil. Worth its weight in fuel, that's more than enough to power a Boeing 747 from Penang to Hanoi in Vietnam. But all this cooking oil has a limited lifespan. It can only be reused 3 times, after which the oil gets traditionally disposed of down the sink and into drains. Eventually, the oil makes its way to the sea, where marine life face extraordinary risk.
As soon as you've got a layer of oil above the seawater, you inhibit oxygen from entering the water, and then all sea life in that water then does not have a source of oxygen and then perish. So imagine the huge amounts of oil that is emitted into the water, what kind of damage it can do.
Penang's need to address this problem was dire. And in 2012, Vinesh Sinha came up with a solution. A modern approach to an established technology that's existed for over a century. In 1893, Rudolf Diesel invented the first diesel engine. And during his showcase, the engine ran on fuel of an organic nature, peanut oil. This use of vegetable oil to power machines is a far more sustainable alternative to fossil fuel. But there's a flaw in its design, which prevents it from taking over as a leading fuel source. The molecular structures of diesel and vegetable oil. They're similar in content. Both are made up of hydrogen and carbon atoms. But their structure is clearly different. Diesel has 1 molecular strand, while vegetable oil has 3, and they're linked at the end. This link is called an ester. When temperatures drop, the larger molecular chain of vegetable oil causes it to thicken up into a gel. But this can be changed by a process called transesterification. When methanol is introduced, the ester is broken and 2 new products are created: glycerine and biodiesel.
Biodiesel is an organic fuel that is available today, and it poses to be a much more viable alternative as it can be produced from waste.
But transesterification alone wasn't enough for Vinesh and his team. They discovered that all cooking oil contains free fatty acids, compounds that cannot be converted in transesterification.
Unfortunately, as people use the oil more and more, the free fatty acids level rises, and by the time it reaches us, sometimes it goes up to 10%.
If Vinesh and his team didn't find a way to remove these free fatty acids, their biodiesel would cause problems in engine performance. So Vinesh and his team decided to make their own concoction. And finally, after numerous trials, they found the perfect blend. Playing a major role in this special concoction, sulfuric acid.
If the free fatty acid levels are very high, then we would add an additional chemical into the transesterification process for us to accommodate higher free fatty acid level oils.
In 2012, Vinesh and his team at Sustainable Biofuels Malaysia set up their operation. A unit capable of handling 13,500 litres of used cooking oil a month. The first step in the process is to filter and heat the oil. This removes all sediments and moisture. Next, the acid compound is added. Transesterification then takes place, leaving behind biodiesel and glycerine. The glycerine is then sent to pharmaceutical companies who convert it to soap, while the biodiesel is cleaned and heated to remove any moisture. The final product is ready-to-use biodiesel, a fuel that produces 60% less carbon than normal diesel. The entire process takes just 8 hours and converts 150 kilograms of oil into 150 liters of biodiesel.
All the biodiesel that we produce is distributed within the Penang state itself to people who use unsubsidized fuel, which is generally the industry. We ourselves use biodiesel, and that generally is used in our pumps, in our lorries, and in my own vehicle.
With their trucks running on biodiesel, Vinesh's team make daily trips across the city to collect used oil from individuals and public places. And as public awareness of biodiesel increases, more people are beginning to recycle their cooking oil. Initiatives like this are exactly what Penang needs in its efforts to become a green and sustainable city.
Opportunity does not knock on your door twice. Given an opportunity to leave a legacy, we must leave the legacy. We know that we have got to showcase Penang because Penang needs to lead. And when Penang leads, then we can even bring a better tomorrow.
Using organic methods to eradicate waste, clean up pollution, and recycle used cooking oil, this Asian boomtown is seeing its vision of sustainability come to life. For over 50 years, Taiwan's port city of Kaohsiung was an industrial powerhouse. As industries flourished and the population expanded, unchecked urban growth soon led to severe air and water pollution. With the prospect of becoming nothing but an urban wasteland, the city authorities executed a remarkable recovery plan, utilizing green technology to breathe new life into Kaohsiung. But would this be too little, too late to ensure the future of this boomtown? Asia is booming. Its population nearly quadrupled within a century. These boomtowns are fueled by more than human or natural resources. Radical innovations are making them livable and sustainable. But the challenge of achieving these innovations can be tough, and the answers are never straightforward. This is Asianopolis. Millions of people might one day call it home. Life in the 25th century would be clean and green. Whether by sun, sea, or even wind, Asianopolis would be driven entirely by the power of nature. In Asianopolis, electricity could power all our vehicles. Elegant solar forests would serve both as charging station and parking lot. Each tree is composed of a set of photovoltaic leaves. The base of each trunk features a power outlet that can be used to charge vehicles. A design made possible by developments in the 21st century. The southwestern tip of Taiwan has historically been an important commercial port and home to the nation's second largest city. Kaohsiung, one of Taiwan's industrial powerhouses. Home to an oil refinery, aluminium and cement works, and fertilizer factories. but it was literally sinking fast under the weight of its own success. In 2009, Taiwan's parliament approved an $8 million renewable energy action plan. The hope being that in 20 years' time, renewable energy would meet a third of the country's entire energy requirements. Solar power obviously needs abundant sunlight, and Taiwan, bathed in over 300 days of sunshine every year, suddenly finds a solution to its own energy dilemma. Luzhu is chosen because of its year-round sunny location and the need to encourage its industrial development. In regions with prolonged exposure to the sun, advanced high-concentrated photovoltaics are superior to standard solar panels. These can produce the same amount of solar power, but require a much smaller surface area. Photovoltaic cells are made of materials called semiconductors, like silicon. When light strikes the cell, its energy is absorbed within the semiconductor, knocking electrons loose and allowing them to travel along the circuit to create a current. In December 2009, the Luzhu high-concentration photovoltaic solar power plant was unveiled to the world. The plant has 141 huge solar panels, employing several sets of dish reflectors to make maximum use of the available sunlight. The plant has another unique feature to optimize the collection of sunlight. When it's overcast and the sun cannot be seen, the passive sensor uses information retrieved from previous sunny days to predictively plot the sun's path across the sky.
在业界在 sensor 这个部分呢，有分为主动式跟被动式的两种方式。那主动式呢，就是在有太阳的时候，直接用靠追踪器的部分去做一个追踪。那在被动式的方面呢，它会采用轨迹式的一个方式。好，那这个轨迹式呢，它是利用公式去计算太阳每个时间它的位置在哪里。那当时间到的时候，追踪器它就会自动转到太阳的角度去。
The sun trackers take their cue from the natural world. Many plants move to follow the sun's daily path across the sky, a process called heliotropism. So even during the cloudiest of days, the panels can be automatically orientated towards the brightest region of the sky.
我们的追踪器呢有两种模式哈，在我们看得到太阳的状态下呢，它会直接去侦测一个太阳的位置。好，那在可能阴天啊或者是多云的气候的状态之下呢，我们会把我们之前取得的太阳的轨迹的位置输入到追踪器里面。
However, once fully operational, an unexpected problem becomes apparent.
目前这边遇到困难是因为我们这个厂它坐落在于海边附近。好，那其实大家都知道，在海边就是会有比较多的那种海风，那携带有相当多的盐分，那这会造成我们的一些钢结构一些锈蚀的部分。好，那甚至它如果侵入到我们的模组内部的话，会造成我们太阳电池因为它生锈，然后或是锈蚀而产生短路。
The solution to rust corrosion caused by the salt air was to paint the front of the panels and apply a corrosion-resistant chemical coating behind them. Within just a few months of its completion, the plant is already reaching an output of 1 megawatt, enough electricity to power 1,000 households. The electricity produced by the plant is sold to the national grid. The success of the Luzhu project paved the way for a solar power revolution in Kaohsiung. Another symbol of success is the innovative World Games Stadium. The 55,000-seat stadium features over 8,800 solar panels on its roof, supplying up to 75% of the building's power needs during operation. When the stadium is empty, the solar power generated is fed into the national grid and is sufficient to power 80% of the surrounding neighborhood. The potential of solar power subsequently saw the rapid evolution of this renewable resource throughout Kaohsiung and further afield across the whole of Taiwan. The reimagined Kaohsiung city is now on its way to becoming a green boomtown of the future. Problems like environmental pollution, however, don't have to rely on such monumental technologies. Often, the most innovative solution is found on a microscopic level. In 25th century Asianopolis, civilization would discover new ways to reduce greenhouse emissions. One of the planet's fastest growing organisms that produces 70% of the world's oxygen is algae. In the future, skyscraper rooftops would have their own algae-powered farms, using algae as a means to tackle global warming. It's a bleak morning, and a lone figure negotiates the rocky shore of Tainan. Professor Chang Chia-Siu is on the hunt for a microscopic quarry. However, it's not difficult to find, distributed along the tide line in the millions. It's microalgae, one of the simplest forms of life on Earth, but also one of the most successful, having been around for over 3.5 billion years and diversified into 300,000 different species. Professor Chang is an authority on algae, and over the years, his research has revealed its almost limitless capabilities. But it was the way in which algae acted against airborne pollutants that intrigued him the most. And what if this algae also continually grew to a large enough size or biomass to be harvested for other productive uses?
And algae can be used as the food, and especially for aquaculture feed, animal feed, and they can be used as the health food, pharmaceutical products. They can also be used for fertilizer.
Microalgae has been shown to absorb carbon dioxide 2 to 4 times more than that of a tree. Therefore, while a single hectare of trees will absorb 25 tons of carbon dioxide every year, an equivalent area of microalgae could absorb up to 90 tons. Carbon dioxide emissions have long been a concern in industry-heavy cities like Kaohsiung, a reason why Professor Chang's research has now taken on a sense of urgency. And the ultimate test would be to see if microalgae could grow in the presence of carbon dioxide contained in waste air from industrial emissions, known commonly as flue gas. An unlikely test lab is found to conduct this groundbreaking experiment on an industrial scale. This huge mill is run by China Steel, one of the country's largest steel manufacturers and a major producer of carbon dioxide emissions. The company was quick to recognize the benefits of having these emissions drastically reduced.
如果透过跟张老师的合作，可以加速中钢在微藻领域方面的技术研发。 那从钢铁业的角度而言，钢铁业是一个高耗能的产业，并且也是二氧化碳的排放源。因此呢，如果能够以烟道废气来养殖油藻，并且开发成藻油的一些相关技术，那可同时固碳以及开发新的能源，将是双重的优点。
Professor Chang calls on the help of fellow expert Professor Lin from National Kaohsiung University.
微藻生长它需要的是它是行光合作用的植物，所以它需要光、水跟 CO2。所以 CO2 溶在微藻的 medium 里面的，那微藻可以去利用这个 CO2 行光合作用，那产生微藻本身的 biomass，OK， 然后跟氧气。
The pilot project at China Steel is operational and is handling the flue gas from this single smokestack. The flue gas from the plant's chimneys is diverted through a system of pipes and pumped into each of the tubes. The algae in these tubes process the carbon dioxide in the waste air through photosynthesis, converting it into oxygen and ethanol. The strain of algae used in the steel mill also contains a high oil content, which is now being studied and tested as a future source of biodiesel. Very real alternative to present-day motor fuel.
整个这一套系统现在它 CO2 的 reduction 的 efficiency 大概是50%。那如果放到1公顷的状况的时候，那这一套系统将来每一年大概可以产生 biomass， 就是微藻的 biomass 大概是150公吨的 biomass。
After the initial test period, results show that for every 1 gram of microalgae grown by the team, 2 grams of carbon dioxide was being reduced. But their work is far from over. If the CO2 converter is to become fully integrated into the plant, then each one of these smokestacks would require a similar algae-producing facility. And with such powerful productivity, algae is here to stay. The challenge for humans now is to harness that power and use it to realize a cleaner, greener future. Renewable energy is one of the keys to ensuring that future, and in Taiwan, it's being obtained from a very unlikely source. As the world's landfills and waste treatment plants become overloaded, future cities will have to diversify in the way they dispose of and handle their waste. Instead of literally just flushing it away, waste could be repurposed as a domestic lighting solution. These biolamps, for example, would work by breaking down waste into sludge, which would feed colonies of bioluminescent bacteria. In the coastal city of Kaohsiung, land has always been a precious commodity, so using it for just dumping garbage was never a practical option. Up until the mid-1980s, the city had been disposing its waste in what was essentially a huge hole in the ground, the Siqingpu landfill. Such landfills are generally lined with compacted soil or man-made liners to make them watertight. When they're full to the brim, they're capped to prevent water seeping in. However, 20 years later, the landfill in the suburbs of Kaohsiung began leaking methane gas from the decomposing waste beneath.
这个掩埋场有48公顷，那有900万公吨的垃圾。以前在垃圾进场的时代，居民因为臭味的问题会引起抗争，因为掩埋场的垃圾如果没有经适当的处理，会有闷烧、 发生火灾一些公安的危害，并且会有沼气的逸散，造成大家空气品质的污染。沼气是一种危害的气体，它如果没有经过适当的处理，它会造成逸散，附近环境的一个空气品质。
The Kaohsiung Environmental Protection Bureau is forced to find a solution.
因此，必须要赶快的来把这个沼气做一个适当的一个污染防治。
The type of methane recovery system that was chosen would address the risk of methane escaping unexpectedly during construction. This gas collection system taps into areas of the landfill where the gas has already collected and accumulated under its own pressure. Collection wells are installed vertically throughout the landfill, to depths ranging from 45% to 65% of the waste thickness. From the collection wells, the gas is piped to the Siqingpu methane plant to go through a process of purifying and cooling. And finally, the gas powers a huge gas engine that turns the electric generator. Since 2006, the plant has been converting 2,500 cubic meters of gas into electricity per hour.
把它适当处理，不但可以产生绿色能源，而可以改善整个环境，给高雄市民多一个绿色的一个公园。
Today, the power generated by the plant is estimated to meet the daily electricity demands of some 4,000 families in Kaohsiung. Where an open, putrid landfill once stood, today sprawls a popular city park. Thanks to technology and clever, sustainable utilization of methane gas, the once notorious Siqingpu landfill has been transformed into the lungs of Kaohsiung, providing fresh air and an abundant supply of electricity. It's never too late for even long-established industrial capitals to undergo green rejuvenations. The rebirth of Kaohsiung into a leaner, greener boomtown has shown exactly what can be achieved when sustainable technologies are applied on a citywide scale.